The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday, TGIF. And before we get to our guest, who I know you're all waiting for with bated breath, but I want to make a little announcement for those people whose children are in Ecuador. My daughter is down there. They had an earthquake down there, and I want you to know, in case you haven't heard, I received a text from her. Everybody's fine. They weren't in the area. They had the earthquake. So just in case you haven't heard, everybody's good. And they're having a good time on a Galapagos Island. So with that, we're now, without further ado, I am going to introduce our guest. And I know some of the candidates we had on, people who weren't really that familiar with, but I'm sure most people are pretty familiar with the mayor of the city of Fall River. And without further ado, I'll introduce Mayor Jasiel Correia. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chip. Thanks. Okay. Nice to be here. Thanks, CJ, for having me on. Nice to be here this morning with you. And nice to kind of give my overview on why people should vote no on the recall and vote yes for Jasiel Correia on the second half of the ballot in the upcoming March 12th election.
Okay, good. And so what we normally do is let you give it a little overview. I think you've already encapsulated it, so we'll get right to it. Some of the questions I've gotten from some people are about that vote no on the recall. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know, I was involved in the other recall, and you were one of the first non-participants in the recall to sign the petition.
That's right.
And you said it's a fundamental right of the people. If we look at the Mass Constitution, it says all government officials are at all times substitutes and answerable to the people. So this, to many people, is, as the first recall was, the ultimate expression of our democracy. And if you were in favor of the first one, because it was an expression, and I believe when you said that and signed it, you said, I believe you have a right to do this. So what makes you not be in favor of this particular one?
So let's separate into two things. I'm asking people to vote against the recall of Jasiel Correia. That doesn't mean that they did not have the right to petition people and attempt to have a recall. So I think there's two issues going on there, right? I still believe in the democratic process and that anybody's got the right to, within the charter rules, to petition the citizens and get a recall question on the ballot, which has happened here. But I'm confident that through the track record that I've been able to accomplish with my team at Government Center and throughout the city over the last 3 years, that people will say, you know what, even though there were enough signatures to get a recall ballot question, I want to reaffirm that this mayor is the mayor that I want to keep in office by voting no on the recall or against. It's actually voting against the recall on the first half of the ballot, and then on the bottom half, voting for Jasiel Correia II as well. And both parts are very important. I don't want people to be confused out there. You need to vote against the recall if you're against it, and that equates to a no vote. And then on the bottom half, vote for Jasiel Correia as well. Do both parts. But certainly, I am absolutely for democracy and for the people's right to petition and elect their officials and re-elect their officials in this particular case. And what I've stated, and I'll state it again, is, you know, one of the reasons why there was not even a consideration of a resignation is that is really up to the people. It's not up to me to decide, you know, okay, am I going to resign over issues that have nothing to do with the city of Fall River? Clearly, I mean, no one has connected the two to the city of Fall River, not a single person. So I believe that the answer was no, and that I'm going to let the people decide my fate. And if they want me to continue to serve as mayor, which I believe the majority do, then I'm going to continue to do that.
Well, very cogent answer. I think it was well put. However, I think it might be a little, that concept may be a little too sophisticated for some of it, and that's what I think we're trying to. This is why we have the shows, to try to make this clear, because some people feel that there are issues that we don't feel he can do the job. I don't feel so we have to have a recall. But as you said, and you were correct. I mean, obviously, if you vote no, yes or no, it becomes a personal issue, and the people the people will have weighed in on this, and that is the final authority, even according to our own state constitution. The only problem I have always had with recall elections is there's no primary and stuff. So when you break up a vote, sometimes it can skew the real. And also, and we're not going to blame you for everything, although everybody thinks we do. We do blame the voters in many cases. I've always said that years ago in this city, we used to have 70% turnout, 75% turnouts. And when people don't turn out to vote and complain after the fact, in my estimation, they don't really have they don't really have an issue. But I think that was, I think that clarified a lot for the people, because you're right, you have two bites at the apple. You can say you do want the recall to let, it go, and then you can say I don't want the recall and still vote for you if you feel you're doing a good job.
That's right.
The other thing is, you mentioned the fact that I hear a lot on the street, and I was asked this question about your ability to do the job. And there are some people who actually think you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
However, what they're looking at in their perspective is, and I want you to give me your view, their perspective is that there are certain positions where perception is as important as performance.
Sure.
And we know that the governor and some congressional people recommended that you resign, and they've had a lot of experience. But we've also seen some CEOs of billion-dollar corporations resign their position before they were adjudicated, to say, okay, I don't want the stocks in my company to go down, and it really inhibits, because you are the face of the city.
Sure.
You're the mayor.
That's right.
You're the CEO, and you are the face of the city. And there are people out there who feel, and whether it's justified or unjustified, they feel that, if the DA gets indicted for murder, he could have been the greatest DA in the world. They're gonna look for him to step away from that position until he exercises his right to due process and vindicates himself. And there are many people who feel that it would have been more prudent for you to step away, prove your innocence, and then come back. So I kind of encapsulated that view, I think, and I think it's a justifiable concern with people. It's not nobody. Yeah, as you said, everybody has a right to their own opinion, be it correct or not. But I mean, what fundamentally separates this unique circumstance, and everything is a unique circumstance, from a CEO of a major company that steps away, or a politician who steps away?
I think people have to vote with their pocket, with their mind, with what effect is it having on their individual personal life, right? And if you look at the culmination of the accomplishments, even while there were tons of rumors going on and investigations and all this stuff over the last couple of years, really all promoted by a significant amount of my opponents, the establishment that I have fought against since I became the mayor, where we've really changed things up, and it's not about economic development for the few, but now it's really economic development for the many, and we can talk a little bit about that shortly. But I think at the end of the day, people are motivated by what matters to them, what impact Jasiel Correia and the mayor of the city of Fall River has had on their lives. So when you look at eliminating a $120 trash fee, when you look at eliminating the purple bag program, but still providing more services to people, being more transparent with the numbers, and building a stabilization fund while also returning some savings to the public, I think that at the end of the day is something that no matter what's going on, people are going to say, yeah, you know what, he's done a lot for my life, he's improved my life, I want to keep him there, and I'm going to ride this out with him. I'm going to support my mayor, the mayor of the city of Fall River, Jasiel Correia, which I hope people do, to the end, because we don't know where this is going to go, right? And it doesn't make a lot of sense to remove something that's working when we don't know what the end result is going to be on the other side. So I think that's really the question. When you look at a billion-dollar company, what happens is you have a bunch of stockholders that the CEO works for who say, oh my God, our stock price is falling or something, and they probably force that resignation. Believe me, a CEO of a billion-dollar company probably doesn't want to resign, so they're probably forced to resign. So that's what happens, and we have that exact same scenario here, and that scenario is the recall election. If people decide to say no, we want somebody else, then that is their choice. So I'm not doing anything different than anybody in my position would do. I'm just asking the public to reaffirm my position because I've done a lot for them, as you can see through the record. So I think that's ultimately the answer. The other thing is I would disagree that a lot of these high officials have asked me to resign. The governor, for example, did not ask me to resign. He told me to, he stated that I should deal with this issue. But you have to understand, the issue with my private business that I started when I was 19 years old, it's a very unique situation. There are not too many people that will have started a business at 19 and become the mayor of a city by 23. It just so happens that the two are so close together that it is being leveraged against me, when in reality, as you saw with some recent announcements, this was a business transaction. It's a business affair that needs to be dealt with between the different parties involved. Those parties have nothing to do with the city. It's been totally vetted by federal agents. It's been totally looked at. And the conclusion was that it has nothing to do with my performance as mayor. It has nothing to do with my time as mayor. It has everything to do with my time as a youth from 19 who was hungry to start a business and who actually accomplished that business. I got the app that I said I would make on the App Store. And now it's a business dispute on if somebody is owed money or not. You know, regardless of how money was spent, the product was created. So I think there's a way to come to an agreement. And I think everybody should understand that. There are always ways to negotiate business transactions. I mean, you used the example of murder. That is a very serious, heinous crime that somebody can be accused of. This is a business transaction that can be settled and negotiated, just like the various business transactions that you have been involved with negotiating the city yourself, whether it be healthcare, whether it be contract negotiations. There's always middle ground. So I think this has been leveraged against me. It's been used against me, which is a shame, which is unfair to me personally. But I think there's a solution there that has nothing to do with the taxpayers and the citizens of our city, and that's what we're going to try and accomplish. But I'm continuing to maintain that everything I've done for the city of Fall River has been in the best interest of our people, and it shows. When you have brand new fire trucks, all brand new fire trucks, and you know the state of the fire department in the past and where we are today. When you have more manpower, when you have upgrades to 6 and 7 parks and Patriots Park over at Maplewood Park, when you have a stabilization account that's at $7.4 million today, when you give back money, I mean, Chip, you've been talking about it for years, about taxes and fees. I mean, what other community, what other mayor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has eliminated 2 fees? I don't think there's a single one. I mean, it really is incredible what we've been able to accomplish despite people's personal agendas and vendettas. When you look at some of my political opponents, they are not happy that they're not part of these decisions, that they're not the ones that can take credit for these decisions, that they have lost some ground in terms of economic development and the strategy of the city. But you know what? That's because they're all self-interested people. I don't have that long history that these people have, the entrenchment in our community that they have. My job as mayor, and I said it from day one, is to make the city a better place. That's it. I wake up every day, I put on my suit, I go to work, I get these things done, and I love the job, and I want to continue doing the job. So I know that was a long answer to your question, but I think that's the answer. It has nothing to do with the people of the city of Fall River, and they're going to decide the fate of their city and my fate as the mayor of their city on March 12th.
Well, no, this is the reason we had this format, to allow you to expand.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
You know, the 1-minute sound bites, you can't do justice. So it was a very thorough answer. So, you know, my count is, obviously, you talked about being separate, and it is. But just as your fate will be decided by the people in the recall, and hopefully, and I will say this again on the show, please, let's get a 90% turnout at this election so we can say the people have spoken. And
That's right.
I think you agree.
Absolutely.
You know,
the more the merrier.
Because this is what we want. We don't want a minority running our government.
True.
But as that will be, you know, your guilt or innocence through due process on the other charge, related or unrelated, will be settled by a court of law.
That's correct.
Not in a court of public opinion.
That's right.
And this is what we're trying to. This is the thing, and I think this is what a lot of people are saying. Well, you know, and they are interrelated to a degree. There's a degree of synergy here, that because obviously you can look at you know, your ability to put on a good. We know Fall River. When people look at it, we have to change this. We get a black eye. We get voted the most dangerous city in the Commonwealth. We get voted with all these things.
Not anymore. Lately, I haven't seen that.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying we were. It wasn't that long ago.
And Chip, just on that point, if I could for a second.
Sure.
You're absolutely right. You said this is the irony, right? So a lot of my opponents, some of the recallers who have personal agendas and vendettas, and you know, all of a sudden they're saying that my personal, private life, something that happened when I was 19 years old to 21, is painting the city in a bad light, is putting a negative cloud over the city. Well, didn't that already exist? before my administration. Isn't that what we always talked about, that we had no money in stabilization? I remember Sam Sutter saying that, you know, if he didn't get his $120 fee and kept the purple bags, he was going to lay off 30 police officers or 20 police officers and 30 firefighters and pink slips to our teachers, and we were on the brink of receivership. And before that, we had, you know, mayors running around with, window scandals and all kind of other issues. And, you know, our slogan was, "We'll try." And we really couldn't get out of our own way, even on economic development. And we were the lowest, you know, median average income in the state. All these different issues. And now, the 3 years that I've been mayor, we've at least made a lot of progress on eliminating a lot of those issues. So one of the things that I constantly talk about is how if you take the last 20 years of government and compare it to the last 3 years, there is a stark difference, a positive change that has happened, whether it be stabilization, whether it be the building of a new Durfee High School, whether it be the elimination of fees, whether it be more police and firefighters. We're not even talking about, you know, layoffs at all in any departments. We're not talking about pink slips to teachers anymore. We're talking about more money to schools than how do we even meet net school spending, which is the law. So that is an incredibly positive change that has happened. So I don't believe the nonsense that people throw out there that, oh, all of a sudden we're taking these steps back. No, those things are real and they're lasting. They're lasting forever as long as you have the right leadership in place. And I don't believe any of the opponents that are running against me can provide that continued stable progress, even with the issues that are at hand. And I think that's really important to remember. You know, we're finally making our way out of this thing. You know, what happens if I'm able to settle all this out of court? We don't know that. So I think that allowing me a little bit more time and don't fix something when it's not broken. You know, there's no need to fix anything here. We're moving along, we're progressing. I'm in the middle of my 2020 budget, and there's still more fees and more things that I need to look at to return even more savings to the people. You know, we are looking, my favorite thing to say is, I want to outdo myself, right? I like outdoing myself, and I challenge my administration, whether it's Kathy or Mary or anybody at City Hall or throughout the government, to say, what more can we do? So what is our next thing? We're looking at, okay, how do we not have taxes increase next year? Now that we've gotten rid of 2 fees, what else can we do? How can we look at this stormwater fee and try and figure this out? Now people say, oh, you're crazy. Well, how am I crazy? I've already gotten rid of 2 fees. Why not look at that and say, how can we do that? I was at a conference and an individual was talking to me about how they used Homeland Security to leverage federal dollars to secure and fund a water project. Because what happened was they suggested that the drinking water supply or the stormwater system could be a target of terrorist attacks. And they leveraged Homeland Security to get millions of dollars from the federal government to secure their stormwater and water treatment facility. These are things that we can look at, but nobody, there has been no mayor and there's no person running against me that has any creative solutions to any of these global problems that we face, except this administration. And we have a proven track record of implementing those solutions. So I think that it's important to keep in mind what I said in the beginning of this. Vote with what has made an impact on your life, a positive impact. Do you like that you don't have purple bags? Do you like that you don't have to pay the $120 fee? Do you like that you have more police and firefighters and you don't have a mayor that's lying to you saying, oh yeah, you know, to get you more police and firefighters or to just keep the ones we have, I got to charge another fee on top of your taxes, on top of all the other things that you have to pay. I mean, that's the reality. That's the truth. That's the fact that we have done more with less of the people's money in many instances. Now, has taxes gone up? Yeah. Taxes went up in every community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But has anybody returned money to the people like we have 2 times? No. So I think people need to remember, vote with your heart, vote with your mind, vote with your wallet. Don't vote because somebody's a nice person. You know, that's, you know, I'm a nice person, but, you know, I don't understand how somebody can say, well, we're going to vote for this guy because he's a nice guy. Well, it doesn't take just a nice guy to run city government. It takes somebody with a plan, with a proven track record of success. You have no idea what one of these people will do when they're in office. They have no record as being the mayor. They could come in and say, you know what, we're going to put 50 new police officers on the street and have no plan to do that. And then they're going to raise your taxes, and they're going to create a new fee, and then they're going to do this and that. And you're going to be back in the same situation that we were in prior to this administration.
Well, you articulated that very well as usual. You know, articulation is not an issue with you. But we'll get back to what you started originally, and personally, as you know, we stay pretty impressed with up to date with everything that's going on. And one of the things that gets me is that the you know, this thing about between 19 and 20, you know, regardless of that, as Bonaparte said so many years ago, and he hit it on the head, the two levers that move men are fear and self-interest.
That's right.
So everybody is you know, you're articulating positions, and this is why this is a good show. Your opponents will then, in our second show, we'll get into specifics with you and all the other candidates. But, you know, to me, your age is irrelevant, whether you were 19 or 42. You started a business, and it is what it is. The record will now speak for itself, and that's what I think. This is, again, when we get into the political realm where everything is kind of distorted. Everything is amplified or muted for the sake of politics. And as you said, I disagree with one of your statements, vote with your heart. And never vote with your heart. I know you've watched our show, and I always use the analogy, if my next door neighbor's an auto mechanic, I may have a burger with him, but I'm not going to bring my car to him if he can't fix my car. It has always been our contention on this show that you vote for the person who can do the best job and do the best for the taxpayers of the city of Fall River.
So
and so that's the only issue as far as I'm concerned. And we always say education is always your best tool when you vote. So you've articulated very well, as you always do. And by the way, you did a good job on Channel 10.
Thank you.
You know, as a matter of fact, public speaking is a forte with you. So, but the reality is that we want everybody to look at everybody's platform. We said on all the other shows, when whatever candidate left after the show, at the end of the show, we always told them, examine their platform in detail, send us some questions, because we will do that, and that is the issue. And as you said, and look, unlike the other recall, and as you said, you know, it's not about who you like. I get along with Will Flanagan. I thought he was, you know, and I've said it, and you know me, I'm not afraid to give up hope. I thought he was an incompetent as the mayor. We had an $8 million deficit that wasn't prepared for in the budget with things that were foreseeable. Obviously, if there's something unforeseeable and you can't prepare, there's going to be. But when you don't prepare for pay raises you negotiated, when you don't prepare for a landfill that everybody except apparently he didn't know was going to close, these are the kind of things, and this is the reason that we initiated that recall on performance but the thing is that, you know, everything is unique. I mean, the reality is you can say, you know, you can't tell the participants without a scorecard, but you have to dig, and that's what we tell our viewers and the voters. Dig into the platforms, evaluate every single statement, and make sure that it's not, you know, it's not just a facade, and vote for the person you truly believe in your heart. Not because it's your heart, it's because you truly feel. After examination, have a reason. You know, when if I go to see a doctor, I don't go to the worst doctor in the city. I make sure I check the guy's credentials.
You're absolutely right.
And it's the same thing. So.
And I appreciate that clarity too, because you are right. When I say vote with your heart, I mean, yeah, you gotta vote with the person that you believe in.
That's right.
That's going to continue either. You like what I'm doing. And I tell people, I was at a neighborhood association meeting just the other night, and I say, look, you know, I think there's something that you can point to in my administration that you probably really like, and there's probably multiple things you can point to, and there might be a couple things that you say, yeah, I wasn't a fan of that, and I'll give you a couple examples of that, and then I want to talk a little bit about the platform for what is to come. What are the things we are working on right now? So, you know, you look at economic development. Some people love that I ended the relationship with FROED, and that had been being called for by multiple mayors and multiple people in multiple city councils for many, many years. And then there are some people that say, well, that wasn't my favorite decision, right? And no, we should keep FROED. Well, there you go. That's an example of some people like it, some people don't. There are many, many people that say, I hate those purple bags, I want them gone, and I finally got rid of them. And then there are a few people that say, well, no, I like the purple bags, and I think you should have kept them. There are some people that say, oh, well, I think that you shouldn't have privatized trash collection, even though most communities throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, almost all of them are private trash collection contracts. And then there are a few people that say, well, no, you shouldn't have. And, you know, you shouldn't have went against the union. But, you know, in this particular case, we tried to help those union members to get either other jobs within the Department of DCM or other jobs elsewhere within the community and at the new company, Easy Disposal. So there's things that everybody can say, I like what the mayor did here, but I don't like what he did here. I think you got to look at the aggregate and say, out of all those things, are we better off today than we were before this administration? And I think it's a resounding yes. You mentioned a few minutes ago, to be in the hole $8 million, negative $8 million, and today have $7.4 million in stabilization while still eliminating 2 fees, while still adding to police and fire, while still providing more money for education and eliminating this craziness that it was, city council versus mayor versus school committee versus superintendent, all that's gone. Now we're on the path to success. And what do I mean by that? We've got to start to think really big, which I've always talked about, Chip, but I think my first campaign, I talked about building a foundation and how you have to build a solid foundation to then, do some bigger things. And everybody knows I've had big visions for this community, and I believe that those visions are starting to finally take place. What do I mean by that? Well, when you look at economic development, I did not see a grand vision. It was grab what we can when it's easy to grab those things, because maybe Amazon came here because of the location and because of the workforce and because of the governor putting in a lot of resources to make that happen. That was a grab, and it's a wonderful grab. But what is the overall picture? How do you move the dial on people's ability to get more money in their pockets with better jobs? How do you move the dial on education? And where's the connection between education and economic development? That was always a disconnect. How could you have a community that wanted to promote economic development over here through a semi-private, quasi-government agency, but yet we weren't even meeting national spending? And nobody was talking about that. There was this huge disconnect. And when I talk about education, I don't just mean the books in school. I mean the workforce training for the future jobs too. Because not everybody's going to go to college, and not everybody's going to become a doctor or a lawyer. Some of them are going to become welders. Some of them are going to become plumbers, electricians. And we need those jobs too, and they're really good paying jobs. So our economic development plan right now is we are at a perfect time to grab hold of the wind energy market. Why do I say that? Because if you look at some of the most successful waterfronts, and we've all been trying to unpack how do we use our waterfront to its best ability. Everybody's talked about the Fall River waterfront. Everybody says, well, or many people say, hospitality, hospitality, hospitality. Well, that's one track of jobs that pay a certain amount, a certain max, and that's one path. And we've got some great things happening on a waterfront around hospitality and entertainment. But if you look at some really successful cities, even like New Bedford, who have working waterfronts with entertainment and hospitality, that's even better. That's a real economy, diversified economy. So we've identified several sites along the waterfront. We're working with a very large company right now that wants to be here, that wants to locate here. And as this wind corridor expands because of Vineyard Wind, 22 nautical miles from our shores, puts up these huge turbines, you're going to see an incredible amount of jobs. $60 an hour jobs for underwater welders and electricians and plumbers and all these different things, hospitality as well. That's one of the things that we're working on. We're going to unveil that shortly. But we can't rush these things, right? I don't want to rush it for the sake of an election. It's got to be done correctly. When we look at the transfer station, we've been working on that, testing the right model that works. And we're finally at a place where we're at an MOU stage, a memorandum of understanding, with a company that'll operate the facility, reduce our trash. But if you look at the foresight of people, if they had foresight back in the day and said, you know what, we're not going to sell this landfill off because it's an asset that can generate revenue. You never want to sell off assets that can generate revenue. You want to sell off depreciating assets that don't make you any money, but if you have an asset that can make you money, why'd you sell it off? We would still be putting our own trash at our own landfill. That wouldn't be a mountain, it'd be a small hill in the industrial park area, which may or may not be the right place for it. But that's what had happened. They sold it off. All this trash from all over New England came into Fall River, and it's going to be here long after both you and I are here. And we lost out. Did we get the revenue of the tipping fees? Yeah, but guess what else we got? We got a trash mountain for the rest of our lives and no ability to send our trash there anymore. So a transfer station, which is a pass-through for trash, is a much better solution. We're working on that now. So those are just some of the things we're working on. I know we're running out of time here today.
Yeah, we are. I was going to tell you something.
I know. But when you look at the sum total of what we've done and where we're going, we're on the right tracks. We're on the right path. And I just am asking people to give us a little bit more time and more of an opportunity to continue doing what's best for you, the citizens and taxpayers of Fall River. So thank you. God bless. I hope you vote against the recall in the top half, and then in the bottom half, vote for Jasiel Correia II. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
And the mayor and all of the candidates will be back for a second round, and we'll get into a little bit more depth. But good show. We appreciate
Absolutely.
you taking time out of your busy schedule
My pleasure.
to come here.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Okay.